All right, this is Eric Housley with another episode of Lessons in Loss, Love, and Resilience, and I'm excited to have a friend here who's her aunt was on a previous episode, Julie Sekviar, and I have Kristen on with me today. I appreciate you joining me, Kristen. I let people introduce themselves and kind of tell a little bit of their story on grief rather than me kind of be the spoiler. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your story?
Yeah. Kristen Sekviar. I currently live in Northwest Indiana. I know Julie Sekviar by way of my husband. He is her nephew. But Julie's great. We've had the opportunity to go out there and visit her a couple times in Napa. So Napa is wonderful. My story is about pregnancy loss, and specifically, it's child loss, but it's a very different form of child loss. In 2022, I had a completely healthy pregnancy. The only anomaly that I had that any doctor would call out is that I was of advanced maternal age, meaning I was over 35. But I wasn't even over 35 until the tail end of my pregnancy, so it wasn't considered.
Right.
And the traditional kind of method behind this is very much abbreviating it. Prenatal care is you get your ultrasound to make sure that everything's okay, that you're pregnant. You get an anatomy scan to make sure everything's okay. And that can be it when it comes to scans and appointments that you are going to see your actual baby. So being that this was my second pregnancy and my first pregnancy, my son was born in 2020 when we didn't go to the hospital and we were doing almost everything remotely.
Mhm.
I thought everything was fine. I might have been lax in my monitoring of my baby because she was my second pregnancy. And unfortunately, at 36 weeks and 4 days, I noticed something was off and I decided to go to the hospital because 36 weeks is like almost full term. Full term technically is 37 weeks. So I went to the hospital, and that was when I got the shock of a lifetime that there was no heartbeat. And we didn't know why in the hospital. We ended up then, this is the part about stillbirth specifically, because she was stillborn. The people don't realize is you have to go through delivery as if you were having a regular baby. You still have to be induced. You have to go in the hospital and go through the whole thing. But then you don't have a baby at the end of it. I mean, your baby's taken away and taken to a morgue. And then following all of that, kind of trying to find myself again, trying to still be a mother to my then 2-year-old, trying to still be a wife to my husband, who is also suffering a traumatic loss and grief, and just getting back to what is the new normal without what we thought was going to be the completion of our family. And
Right.
that's the story of my daughter. Margot Irene was her name, and how I'm kind of working to, keep her memory alive.
Right. Uh, and do you, and if you don't want to say, so what, what happened? Was it just it's just stillborn? Was there some
Yeah.
side of like you hear of like the umbilical cord, like that's usually, I think, during the actual birthing process.
It could be
There's so many,
anytime.
yeah,
Yeah. So we have limited knowledge, and this is one of the problems with I'm going to slander our healthcare system. This is one of the
yeah,
problems of the healthcare system and the maternal healthcare system in America is more often than not, it's such a traumatic loss that when you're in the hospital trying to figure out what am I going to do? I have to deliver, I have to get a cesarean, I have to do this. What is the problem? What's the next process? That autopsies aren't usually brought up unless something dramatic happens. And what happened with Margot is when we did not know why she died when we went in there and there was no heartbeat. But when she was born, when she was delivered, there was a very clear kind of clamp mark within her cord. And from that, in the heat of it all, we didn't ask for an autopsy. So we don't know beyond the fact that her cord was clamped kind of like it looked like one side of it was dead and one side of it was alive. We don't know what happened. And our doctor said it was pretty definitive looking. I truly, to this day, I regret not getting someone to take a picture of it so that I could have another doctor examine it and look at that and kind of give their 2 cents. The resounding theory of what happened is that my pelvic bone and the cord met and it squished it. And death was likely instantaneous. And there was maybe nothing I could have done unless it was, clamped for a prolonged period of time in which I could have gotten to the hospital because I noticed a decrease in fetal movement. Um, it's one of the things that we'll always have regrets around, and others with loss like this or stillbirths. Right. They're given the same kind of very nebulous answers. And even if you get an autopsy, you might not know. We could have gotten an autopsy anyway, and they could have just said it was a cord death, which is exactly what it was written on her death certificate. It was a cord death, which is so nebulous, and it leaves so many questions and doubt out there, but there's nothing we can really do about it.
Right. Right. And it, hindsight's 2020, right? So to say, oh, I should have taken a picture, I should have got the autopsy, I should have this, I should have done that. That's easy to say now, like, like the same thing I tell people, like I shouldn't have let her go. Like those things are really the difference in this scenario, she's in your womb, like unless you were literally in the hospital and at that sudden moment, you're like, something's wrong. Even if it was fairly instantaneous, they'd probably be like checking stuff and seeing movement and whatever. And then emergency C-section.
Yeah.
And most likely still unable to, like at that point. So it's sadly one of those scenarios. It's hard to know. Like, I want to say, SIDS, when they've talked about SIDS for so many children that died of it over years. I remember when we were doing Lamaze class, it's like, make the room warm enough, dress them warm. Do not put a blanket in the bed and a pillow. Those are the things that they can suffocate on, and when they can't turn. And you're just like, it's such a simple concept. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about it. Right.
Right.
That sadly, and I see people all the time dress their babies and it'll be like 89, 90 degrees and they're in shorts and a tank top and the baby's in like winter clothes. I'm like, oh my gosh, that poor kid has got to be, sweltering. And so there's just so many little things that you just wouldn't know. Well, you've since gotten involved with an organization, or I don't know, did you start Count the Kicks or?
No, I didn't start Count the Kicks. Okay. So I'll kind of lead you into the entire why. And one of the things, since we didn't get an autopsy and we're never going to get a definitive answer on what happened, when it happened, why it happened. I play back in my head regularly what led up to her death. On a Thursday, I went in for my traditional doctor's appointment where they do a ultrasound that's not like pictures, it's just the heartbeat scan. And it was fine. And I had an NST, which is a non-stress test, and that came back fine. And then on Friday, I felt funny, like I had Braxton Hicks. And on Saturday, we find out she was gone. And then we delivered her on Sunday. So I play through that regularly in my head. And I think to myself, and this is what got me involved in this organization, Count the Kicks, is there anything I could have done in between Thursday and Saturday that would have been able to notice something was wrong? And whether or not we could have saved her because it was instantaneous or not, I just can't stop replaying that in my head. I replay all of the incidents. It was around Halloween. Her birthday is October 30th. And so we went out trick-or-treating with my 2-year-old. And I vividly remember I had to take a seat on a bench in a park because it was one of those like trunk or treat situations, because I thought I was just having Braxton Hicks. I was 36 weeks pregnant. You can start to have those around that time. And now it makes me wonder, was that some fetal movement that she was, in distress? And I could have done something about it. If I would have gone to the hospital at that moment, would she have been saved? Right. Or it could have been the latter, and that I was having Braxton Hicks because she was already gone and my body was trying to alert me. Either way, after she died, I got really into social media because I don't know if you know this, but it's not uncommon to have a stillbirth, but it's very uncommon for people to talk about it publicly. Yeah. Since she died, I have found multiple people in my life have had losses in their own lives or have suffered a similar situation. My neighbor across the street reached out to me. She came over, told me her whole story. One of my really good friends also had her daughter was stillborn at, I think, 28 weeks or something. So you don't find out about these things until after it happens to you. And that's kind of where I got into social media. And I started to follow not only people that are very vocal about what happened to them and their kids, but about organizations that are there to help prevent it from happening again. And so I stumbled across Count the Kicks. And Count the Kicks is an organization specifically designed to help save babies by introducing to mothers the importance of fetal movements and fetal monitoring of movements as a mother. This is beyond the hospital. And the reason that that sounds so simple, but is actually kind of a nebulous concept is I can just outline my own scenario. So like I said, my first child was born in 2020. The question that everybody asked me on my Zoom doctor's appointments was, is the baby kicking? My answer every time was yes. Yeah, he kicks a lot. That's the end of that question. In 2020, at least, that was the end of it. And we moved on. So in 2022, same thing, except I was in person. Hey, how's the baby moving? The end. That's not providing any kind of trackable information or data that you can talk to your doctor about to alert them of a change that might be negative, or even positive for that matter. But like there's nothing else other than, is the baby moving? So Count the Kicks is an app that was developed by these 4 moms in Iowa. Their parent company is called Healthy Birthday. And these moms in Iowa all themselves lost children to stillbirth. And they got together in kind of a grief group and basically found out there's no mechanism to preventing stillbirth, but stillbirth is a higher mortality rate of unborn babies than listeria. But you're told to not eat lunch meat because you could, kill your baby that way. That's 1 in 20,000 is the listeria rate of fetal deaths. Stillbirth is 1 in 170 in the United States, which is actually very high for developed countries. And I learned all of this through social media. And I ended up trying very hard to channel my grief into a number of things. And I wanted to do something where I could say her name regularly, because that's the problem with child loss, especially a child that most people haven't met, is forgetfulness. You might forget that they exist. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to work towards. So I reached out to Count the Kicks to see if I could be part of the organization in some way. And they have an ambassador program where individuals across the U.S., and now apparently we just launched, I heard on a call yesterday, because they have like monthly calls, that we just launched in Puerto Rico. So first U.S. territory too,
Nice.
Where I can go to health organizations like Department of Health. I can go to local baby showers, OBGYN offices, and present this application, Count the Kicks, which is a free resource to pregnant mothers in their 3rd trimester that can help track kick counting and provide them with a tool that can reduce anxiety, provide data and documentation to show your providers, and is actually a studied system that has seen a decrease in stillbirth rates when launched. So I said that it started in Iowa. These 4 moms launched it statewide after they found a number of studies. I believe the country was Norway that originally did it, where they increased the amount of education to moms and they increased the amount of emphasis on fetal movement monitoring. And they saw a decrease in stillbirth rates that was, fully studied. It's a fully studied paper. Right. And so they presented it to the state of Iowa, and the state of Iowa is the only state that has seen a decrease in stillbirth rates in the past 30 years.
Wow.
So I kind of looked at this as this is the only thing that may have been able to save Margot.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing that I feel very compassionate, strongly about. I need to help other moms not feel, lacking in tools, not be as naive, because some of this, in my opinion, is a lack of informed consent. Yeah. Like, your doctors aren't telling you, oh, you have a 1 in 170 chance of losing your child to stillbirth. Nobody's telling you that. They're telling you, don't eat lunch meat because you could get listeria.
No soft cheese.
Eat hot butter. No soft cheese. Limit your coffee. But all of those things, the rate of fetal demise for those is so low.
Right.
and that they should be talking about, well, you should be monitoring fetal movements because there are
Right.
a lot of cord deaths. There's a lot of ruptured placentas. There's a
Right.
lot of things that happen out there that you need to watch for.
Right. Well, it's
Mhm.
funny too. I would joke around with friends who've been pregnant because some doctors are like, it's okay to have like a half a glass of wine or whatever, right? And they
Yeah.
say like, like you're really not supposed to drink while doing it. Well, tell a woman to drink in moderation that drops a 12 pack of beer a day, go moderation. Well, I'm only drinking six, like, okay, so,
That's where I think the doctors love to tell you they like to appeal to the lowest common denominator. Like
right.
if there is a pack a day smoker or a 6 pack a day drinker, they're just saying don't do anything. But if
Yes.
you actually look at the data behind it,
Right.
moderation is fine.
Right.
But none of that has addressed fetal movement monitoring. And
Right.
I've also found doctors don't love talking about it because
Right.
they think stillbirth statistics scares mothers.
Right. Yeah. Well, and ultimately, I mean, just even knowing similar, I was telling somebody before with me, after losing Elena, it was, I mean, all of a sudden I was meeting so many people that had lost a child, right?
Mhm.
And so you don't really know about it. There's a sense of my assumption when you talk about how you didn't realize how common it was. I have, three people in my life that I know that have had stillborn children, or like where it was 25 weeks in past where then something went wrong when everything was looking fine, right?
Yeah.
um, is it a societal shame for some where they feel like, oh, I'm not, like why? And also, if you don't have to explain it, if it's nice for you like to show up and go, Kristen, I thought, like, oh, how's the baby? Or like, oh, we lost the baby. Like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
don't what to say when you don't know what to say, and all of a sudden this is different. Where I mean, and I talk about frequently in my speaking and workshops about what to say when you don't know what to say. And I remember specifically saying to somebody who I'm very close to, they lost their child at birth, and my comment was, "Well, I'm so sorry. I guess at least you didn't have like that time to bond, and like because in my head." That made sense, right? I tell people most of the time people say what they think they would want to hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you didn't have time to get attached. And in my head, that made sense. And I've since apologized to this person, going, that was the dumbest thing I could have ever said. And I had
It's that
plenty of
phrase,
people.
at least. That phrase, at least, just is a knife to the heart because,
Hmm.
oh, I don't think
Yeah,
you understand.
right,
There's every scenario that you want to experience. You have all these dreams built up, and
right,
then they're all just gone. So,
right. Oh, I
yeah.
know. And really, I mean, like I said, I tell people that I feel so blessed with the 18 years we had with Elena, and they look at me like, how can you? And I said, well, like, but I have friends that have lost their child at birth or to at the age of 3 to cancer, and so I feel so fortunate to have had the time that I had
Hmm.
prior to losing Elena. I didn't understand that, right? So
Yeah.
the preciousness of Margot's life and having the opportunity, or if of being able to have that opportunity, is just it's unfathomable when you haven't dealt with it. And the thought that 1 in 170 is crazy because I mean we should be better at this. And apparently, like this programming, it's making a difference at least in Ohio, right? As you said, Ohio.
Oh,
Um,
Iowa. Yeah.
Oh, Iowa. Sorry.
It is making a difference there.
Everything east of California is hard for me to remember.
It's just this nebulous center part of the United States. Um, but so Count the Kicks is definitely making a ground level impact, especially on moms and birth workers. Last weekend, I was just attending the Indiana Doula conference
Mhm.
where it gets together this large number of doulas for educational purposes. And they have a vendor fair, and Count the Kicks is always there. And those are not the people that I have to convince of the benefit of Count the Kicks. Those are the people that I have to share the resources that they have at their disposal that they can give to their expectant moms. People I have to convince are always doctors and practitioners, because they're stuck in that old mindset. But to add on top of kind of the work, so Count the Kicks is the grassroots organization in which I'm a ambassador, but the parent organization, Healthy Birthday, actually works on the legislative side to get more funding for stillbirth research and care in the United States. We have a few bills that we're backing, and there is a national stillbirth day. It's in September, and the month of October, which happens to be Margot's birthday month, is a national month for baby loss and child loss and loss in general.
Mhm.
So it's telling that she squeaked in there 2 days before the month ended on the 30th. So yeah, they're doing a lot of things right now. The Shine for Autumn Act, we're trying to get that passed before the end of the year, because then if it doesn't get passed, we're gonna have to
Mhm.
reintroduce it in the Congress next year. And then there's other more state level activities that are happening in North Carolina. They're trying to pass the Bump Act, which a lot of this stuff is just to do data
Yeah.
research and data capturing, because fetal monitoring is not something that is heavily researched today. And
Right.
I mean, you'd think it would be in our country that does a lot of things to expectant moms, not to get on that soapbox, but a lot of things that might prevent them from getting any kind of medical access if they needed to terminate for medical reasons or something like that.
Right.
You'd think they'd have more research on it, but they don't. And these are the situations that, Healthy Birthday and Count the Kicks are trying to impact.
Mhm.
I also want to comment on something you said about the like going back to work and everything, because I have had I mentioned earlier, my oldest was born in 2020. Margot was born in 2022. We did have a rainbow baby. His name is Burton, and he was born in 2024, and he's just such a joy. But that at least comment, as well as the going back to work comment,
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times people came up to me and said, at least you can get pregnant again. At least it wasn't so, like you didn't have because technically Margot didn't have a birth certificate because she
Right.
was born dead. So at least you didn't have to do this. And to those people, I'm like, at
Right.
least she was still a kid. Like, all I can think to myself every time I get those comments is, at least your mom, you could get your mom passed or something like that. You could get a new mom. Like your dad could marry again. At least that he could marry again.
Yeah.
You're never going to say
Well,
that to someone. So why would you
and
say that to someone about a baby?
I had a woman say to me, I'm so sorry. Perfect. Stop there. And
Yeah,
instead,
done.
she followed it with, are you going to try to have another child? And me and my sarcastic grief humor,
Whew.
I wanted to say yes. And if it's a girl, is it okay if we name her Elena? And
Mhm.
almost to like show like what am I supposed to replace her in my
Yep.
dark grief humor. And I didn't. Hannah, when I told my wife that, she's like, you did not say that. I go, I didn't say it, but I really
I
wanted to.
wanted
Like,
to.
and I'm
I've got
super like
to.
quick on the comebacks that I
Oh,
was like, "Ooh, I'm so there." And really, so what, Kristen, what could someone say? Obviously, if it's 1 in 170, everybody that does watch or listen to this podcast is going to have someone in their life in some way, most likely, that they know that has that loses a child late or at stillbirth, of the sort. What is something to say? I know what I tell people to say. Like, I just say, I'm so sorry to hear, of your loss, and that's it. Like,
yeah.
what would you suggest?
Well, so a couple things. You're spot on about you could end it there. Just say that, I'm so sorry for your loss. That's horrible that you've gone through that. You want to be really great? Mention their child's name more than
Mhm.
anything. That's the thing that brings my tears to my eyes all the time. I
Yeah.
love going to Starbucks and ordering drinks that say Margot on them because
Yeah.
I never get to see her name.
Yeah.
So let me take a moment. But
All good. All good.
like mention that child's name if they
Yeah.
had a name. And then I, as a person that is not of any real faith group, I fully think you need to ignore your own religion when you're trying to talk to someone, because the amount of people that have told me, and they're all in my book of people that I have a vendetta against now. Because like, you're in the thick of grief, you are trying to hold it together for your other child, and you're just trying to be a functioning adult, and for someone to say to you, well, God wanted another angel.
Mm.
God didn't
Yeah.
want, I wanted that kid.
Yeah.
So those,
Yeah.
those are the things, like, say that baby's name. We don't get
Yeah.
to hear it enough. And
Yeah.
and a lot of people think with baby loss, like, oh, bringing it up is going to make Kristen sad. I'm sad all the time.
Yeah.
I don't need you to remind me my baby's dead. I know my baby's dead.
Yeah.
um,
Well,
so
I heard it yesterday from a friend. She said to me, she said, I don't want this wound to heal. Like people
yeah,
say, oh, the time heals all wounds. She goes, I don't want it to heal because I don't want to forget her. And I was like, wow, I've never heard someone say that. I mean, I've always known it as it's never going to heal specifically, but
yeah,
because you're going to feel it forever, right? And yes, if they know their name, I mean, I strongly suggest to people too. I'm like, take a strong Christian woman. Like, let's say you were of Christian religion and of Christian faith, and somebody turns and go, oh, she's with God now. You might be angry at that point because it's like, whoa, like God, I'm a good servant. I pray, I this, I that. So you'd think, oh, well, she's a strong Christian, so this is what she'd want to hear because that's what I think I would want to hear. And that's when it's like, yeah, they might not be there yet. Like that, there's a lot of very strong people in their faith that they're not ready to accept that from God at this point, right? So that's why I'm like, hey, just less is more. Because I'll even say this is some people, like I had one woman say, I don't, if you didn't know my daughter, I don't want you to bring her up as if you did. And I'm like, wow, okay. So it's again similar to what you were saying is understanding, and that's why I always say less is more. And then
yeah,
once you say, yes, you know what, Margot was like she's a part of me forever, and it hurts, but thank you for saying something. But by saying
mhm,
Margot, that gives me permission to say, okay, she's okay to use. Like
yeah,
next time I'd say, hey, I was just thinking about you and Margot today. I sent a message to a different person yesterday that I've known who lost her son, and I just said, hey, I'm just thinking about you and your son today, and used his name and such. And I do that because it's, that's actually why I sent the text message. I thought about her and I was like, I wonder how she is today. And I just sent her a
yeah,
message and she's like, man, your timing's impeccable. And we started texting back and forth for like an hour. Anyway, yeah, it's so, it's really hard to know what the right thing to say is, and that's why it's like you can't go wrong with I'm so sorry for your loss.
yeah.
That's horrible.
I
And
just,
and I always tell people don't ever say how they feel, even if it's like if I were to turn to you and say, Kristen, I'm so sorry to hear of your loss of Margot. My wife and I lost our child, like at as a stillborn too. That's different, right? And
very different.
if it versus because I can say things to people. I can look at you and say, Kristen, how are you today? And you'll answer if you know my story. But if you don't know my story, you're like, well, how do you think I am? I'm still mourning
Yeah,
the law, So I get that little bit extra, but I never tell people. I mean, I didn't know how Hannah felt. I knew what it felt like to be a
mhm,
parent, but I didn't know what it was like as a mother to have carried this girl in her this daughter in her body and then watch her grow up to be her little mini me and then lose her. I saw it from my lens, right?
yep,
So I knew how it felt as a father. I didn't know how she felt other than when she and I were communicating. And
right.
so
I
I always
I
tell
can't
people,
help
like,
it.
never say I know how you feel. It's like,
Oh, I can't help but think that I've been very lucky in that until 2023, I had all four grandparents still living. My grandpa just passed this year at 90, and then a little before him, his wife, 89, passed away, and then first one that passed away in 2023 was my grandpa on my father's side at 93. Or no, yeah, he was almost 94. He was 2 days away from 94. So my first example of loss was Margot. My outside of like friends or people that I knew ancillarily. My first close example of loss was Margot. And I can definitively say it was so different than losing my grandparents. They lived a full life. My grandpa, who just passed in January, was telling us up until the last day where he died, he said, I've lived a good life. I could go now. Like he was 90. Of course he did.
Yeah.
And the people that have come up and been like, oh yeah, I completely understand. I just lost XYZ. And I'm like, do you understand? Because I feel like I almost died.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
and I mean, I had somebody literally say, I know how you feel. I lost my dog recently. And I was like,
I had that too. And when that person, and it was even more ancillarily because she came at me in a text message. I heard about your daughter and my dog just died. I'm like, all right. So you had a moment where you felt grief. Pet loss is grief. I agree with that.
yes,
But
yes.
you're equating your grief to my grief, and that is not the same. And
Yeah.
I recognize when my dog, Frankie, passes away, I'm going to be a wreck. I'm already
Yeah.
talking about cloning her. I found out that you can clone a dog for $80,000. I do not have $80,000, but I would love to. And I'm going to be a wreck, but I know I'm not going to die from when she passes. I thought I was dying in the hospital
Yeah.
when I was delivering her because it
Right.
was such an unbelievable
Yeah.
heartbreak.
Yeah. I could only imagine. And somebody very, very close to me just had to go through similar. They realized that the baby had some severe defects, and so they had
To
to
terminate for medical use.
terminate it. Like I think it was 28 or 30 weeks somewhere in there
Yeah.
when they had to do it, and yeah, I can't imagine of the like the thought of even this is like now this child is inside of me. Like I just can't even imagine what the
You have
all
to
of it
go
is.
plan their death day. You have to
I know.
plan their death because,
Yeah.
well, I knew that she was gone, but
Hmm.
she was still inside of me. And
Hmm.
so when I went in on that Friday or on that Saturday, they said, "Do you want to go home? Do you want to go like get your affairs together and then come back in tomorrow on Halloween of all days and deliver?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. No, I want to, make this
Right.
nightmare end."
Right.
And just the fact that you have to plan your kid's death
Right.
was
Right.
a whole nother shock.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine too. And I think I mean the great thing that you're doing from this, in my opinion, is you're helping others hopefully not have to undergo the same pain that you have had because they were able to just see common signs that and yes, it's all speculative of whether that would have changed Margot's, life or not if you would have counted, or if you would have checked on this or if you would have gone. If it was instantaneous, you could beat yourself up till the day you die, that you could have tried to save her. And there's really no answer to that, right? That's kind
Yeah.
of a spiral that you could find yourself in. But just doing that in Margot's honor to help others. I mean, I do what I do just to help others in this because it's so fulfilling to talk about the grief journey and how there's so many. And yes, you know what? Somebody's pet is a part of a grief journey. Like it's hard too. Some people are closer to their pets than they are to their family, and that is okay. I think it's understanding that grief is grief. We don't get to rate it. Like you get a 9.2 and I get an 8.9 or vice versa or whatever. Like it's grief and it's painful and it sucks. But when I kind of do it, I also look and go like, hey, if Elena's Voice Foundation can help stop one mass shooting, then it's worth it.
Mhm.
If they can help stop one act of violence, then it's worth it. If what I'm doing speaking helps one person, then it's worth it. And it was funny because when I was first speaking, a friend, and I was getting like starting to prepare for the book, a friend, a really close friend, says to me, okay, we're going to get on the phone. We're going to brainstorm. I'm going to take notes and just kind of give, poke you and get you to kind of talk about some stuff. And then she says, like, what do you talk about? Blah, blah, blah. And then I said, faith. Like at some point, I don't talk about faith. And she says, well, why not? And I said, because it's, faith and politics, or, religion and politics, or those things. And she says, but you said, if this helps one person on their journey. So don't worry about if you have 100 people in a room that 10 get up and they walk out. You said it's about one person in the room. So if this is your story, if this is your real story, be real. And I was like,
Hmm.
wow, that's a lot. And I don't get into the religiosity piece, more
Hmm.
so the faith piece, because faith is believing, right? You have faith in
Hmm.
your relationship with your husband, right? You have faith in your like how you are as a mother. Like there's different things of energy versus most people think faith. Okay, well that means Christianity or Buddhism. Like that's religiosity, which while they're correlated, they're also very, very different.
Hmm.
And so it's
I'd love
being,
to bounce off that part
yeah.
because my husband is very Catholic,
Hmm.
and we had a Catholic funeral. And I don't know if you know about this, but Catholic priests don't recognize and will not baptize stillborn babies. We
Really?
found that out in the hospital, and the fury my mother had
Yeah.
towards this priest when he said that he blessed her. But I have a very different perspective than him. And we both still support one another in all of
Yeah.
our belief. We still
Yeah.
had a Catholic funeral for her.
Yeah.
Even though I disagreed with a lot of things, we still, celebrate her with a Catholic charity that
Yeah.
has other organization that we have kind of a scholarship fund
Yeah.
under her name.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, I lean very far away from the religion aspect because if I were religious, I agree with you from the earlier comment. I might have been struggling. I might have been questioning a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, your husband, like if you look at it and say, hey, he's a Catholic, he's lived his whole life this way. How is this for him too, right? In losing his daughter. And it's ironic that you say that. So my wife is Filipino, Catholic heritage. Like she's born and raised here, but she's of Catholic heritage. So yes, we had, we had the Catholic, funeral. We had the priest. We actually chose not to identify Elena's body, because I didn't want the visuals of my daughter lying dead with multiple gunshot wounds.
Right.
I just didn't want that to be my vision. So when I woke up for 7 months with nightmares of what had happened, and I have a fairly good idea, even though we've really gotten not into the details, I would wake up and I would be like, I could put that away and be like, that's not real. That's just my imagination assuming, right? But I didn't have to wake up with that. Now, it doesn't mean that's right for everybody. Some people need to have that in their life, that closure. But that was just how we handled it. The priest was actually there. He actually married my wife and I, a Filipino priest here locally who's really funny, and he had baptized both of the or Elena as well, and then did her death. So he was actually the one that went and blessed her and identified her body for us. And so there was, there's so many parts of it again but for me, I'm not Catholic, and
Hmm.
like my religious is a whole different spectrum, and I'm not really a religiosity person in terms of like specific religions. I think we're all on our own journey, whatever that looks like, whether it involves God or not. Like, and so each of us has our own trip that we're doing this with, and so yeah, it is just such a hard thing to understand for people to say that, and things that people might have said to you could have
Hmm.
been said to your husband, and he would have accepted that, or vice versa, right? That's why
Exactly.
again it goes back to
He was unfazed. He was unfazed when the priest was like, "We're not going to baptize your baby." And I'm sitting there like, "What do you mean? What are you here for?"
the Yeah, the I know. No, and that's I think maybe that's just the growing up in the I remember the first time we went to mass years ago, when before even the kids were born. Oh, I think they were little, and they said, "Oh, will you take the gifts?" You know how they people take up the wine and bread, or kind of,
Yeah.
And so I'm like, Hannah, I'm not Catholic. Like, I can't do this. She's like, just walk up there with me. Like, and so we carried out the stuff up with the kids, whatever. And, but I was at the time, I'm like, what's going on
Mm.
here? Cause I didn't want to break any rules with it. I wasn't, I just, but I think ultimately for all of us, this journey it's never easy, but knowing at least for me, knowing I wasn't alone in that in 5 years I could be standing there, because I was seeing other people that had done it before me that were standing there, because I like in similar ways from you, like there were times where I just was like, how do I do this? Like
Mhm.
and my inspiration came from my son, to be honest. He did many things, but yeah, it's just such a crazy journey that you're on and we're on, and in our own ways. So what is your so you said you have two children now, because you had one born after Margot.
Yes.
The what are you working like you're just an ambassador for this organization? How could somebody, if they wanted to get involved or learn more, who would they contact? um like how
Yeah.
would they get a hold of the organization?
So it depends on what you want to do. Are you a pregnant mom? Go download the Count the Kicks app
i'm
today.
i'm not. Oh,
You probably don't need to download the Count the
i
Kicks
might
app.
i might look at it sometimes,
Yeah.
but
But you could tell someone that is visibly pregnant, meaning they're in their third trimester of pregnancy, they're closing in on delivery. Hey, there's this free resource, Count the Kicks. Just go into the App Store, Android, iPhone, whatever, and you can download it. Not only does it contain the resource of fetal movement monitoring that you can share with your doctor, but it also has resources for moms in general. There's a contraction counter in there. There's resources for lactation consultants. It's really trying to be like this kind of one-stop shop for pregnancy, and it's completely free. If you want to be involved with Count the Kicks, you can go to countthekicks.org, and there's a way to become an ambassador in your own state. If you'd like to do any kind of charitable event or something where Count the Kicks could be a sponsor, or you would like to send funds to Count the Kicks, it is a charitable organization accepting donations. And then if you wanted to do something even more dramatic, like getting involved in the legislative side, because the United States needs a lot of help and funding to fund maternal health care, especially in a lot of those areas that are maternal health care deserts. Think to yourself that, like, I live in Northwest Indiana. I am 45 minutes outside Chicago, which means the majority of my hospital situations, not that bad. I can go to Chicago. I can go to Lurie's Children's Hospital in Chicago. I could also go to Indianapolis, but that's 2.5 hours away. I'm also in like Southwest Michigan, so I'm pretty good. But if you get 2 counties over from me, the closest great maternity system is an hour from some of those folks, and that is considered a maternal health care desert. So a lot of the legislative work that Healthy Birthday, the parent company of Count the Kicks, does is to help impact research, funds that go to moms, funds that go to practitioners and folks that are all over the US. So you could go to healthybirthday.com, and you could also kind of get involved that way. And there's always Stillbirth Awareness Day in September, and loss month, which happens to be in October. So there's lots of things that happen around then too.
okay, well, I appreciate it. I mean, Kristen, I think those are great resources for people that are hopefully they don't have to endure the pain that you continue to have and have gone through. And I mean, if it helps one, and it sounds like it's doing great work already in where it's been adopted. So love it. I love the work that you're doing on it. It's something that we need to continue to progress as a nation. We have enough
Mhm.
resources in our country. We should be making this a lot more available, and hopefully, OBGYNs and the medical industry soon start to realize, like, hey, this is a simple thing as well to do, to help people in this journey. So I really appreciate you coming on this episode, and we thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much.